He takes them through the wilderness. It's funny how we approach the wilderness sometimes. As if the wilderness was not part of God's grand design all along. We don't like the wilderness. We criticize the wilderness. But the wilderness was just as much a part of God's plan as the Red Sea. When I read this, I always wonder why, though, does it have to be the wilderness? I don't like that. The wilderness is a jacked up place to take somebody to. And God says, come here, I got something for you. The wilderness. If you read Genesis, you don't hear, let there be wilderness. The wilderness is not something we celebrate. Nobody's saving up their vacation time, saving up their vacation money to go to the wilderness. They don't feature the wilderness on travel shows. You know where they feature the wilderness? On survival shows. Because it takes a certain process to survive the wilderness. It's a messed up place. The wilderness is dry. The wilderness is hot. The wilderness, there's no resources in the wilderness. You can die in the wilderness if you're not careful. And sometimes God takes us through the wilderness to teach us some things, to teach us that the things around us are not our source, but He alone is our source. He takes us through the wilderness sometimes to show us that He is the only one who can satisfy our souls, that sometimes you've got to go through the wilderness so that you can know that He is your source. I want our musicians to come. I'm going to begin to wrap up. You got to get Egypt out of you. I wish I had the time tonight to tell you all of the amazing things that happened in the wilderness. I mean, God did some signs and wonders in the wilderness. See, the wilderness is a dry place. It's a hot place. But if you trust God, it's a beautiful place. It's a place where the miracles happen. The wilderness is a place where the miraculous can take place. Don't discount the wilderness. Hey, young people, when you leave this conference and you've got to go back to school and you're going to face some persecution for what you believe, and you've got to go back home and maybe your parents don't live for God, or you've got to go back to your drama and your dilemmas, and you got to go back and you face some addictions, and you got to go back and face some relationships that you know you need to break off, and it's going to be difficult. That's called the wilderness. But don't discount the wilderness, because it's in the wilderness that if you'll keep your eyes on Jesus through the wilderness, that the most amazing miracles are not going to happen at Uprising. The most amazing miracles in your life are going to happen when you go through a dry season, when you go through a hot spell, when you go through a dry spell where it doesn't feel like you can feel the presence of God, and you worship but nothing happens, and you pray but there's silence but you still trust Him. It's in the wilderness that the greatest miracles in your life will take place. It's in the wilderness where Moses could hit a rock and Fiji water just starts gushing out. I knew my Fijians would like that one. He just hits the rock. Miracles, signs, and wonders in the wilderness. The Bible says, Brother Greg, that their clothes never wore out. Miracles in the wilderness. They were in that wilderness for 40 years and their clothes never got worn out. I need some clothes like that. I need some shoes like that. They never get worn out. I go through shoes like crazy. It's in the wilderness, Pastor Stan, that God showed Himself time and time and time again in the wilderness. There's got to be a place in every Christian's walk with God. There's got to be a shift. There's got to be a paradigm in every Christian's walk with God where you stop cursing the wilderness and you start valuing the wilderness. I'm not asking for it, God. I don't like wilderness seasons, but I'm not going to curse this wilderness, because I know it's in the wilderness that you can show yourself great, and it's in the wilderness that you can show yourself awesome, and it's in the wilderness where you can provide for me, and it's in the wilderness where you can set me free.